Now I want to welcome Nabil Shaath. He's a senior official in the Palestinian Authority and a special envoy of President Mahmoud Abbas, served as the authority's first foreign minister and has held several other ministerial positions, including acting prime minister, senior PLO official for over 20 years, and currently serves as commissioner for international relations for Fatah. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You were on the show 18 years ago, right after Oslo, literally within days. There was a whole lot more hope back then. Did you ever expect that it would go on this long and that we'd be where we are today 18 years ago?
No, 18 years ago, no. Maybe 10 years ago, yes. But 18 years ago, the euphoria was such that I thought that was it. That was it. I knew there were problems, there were caveats, but every month after we signed Oslo, my confidence had grown and increased. The song was right for the moment, and the singers were right. I recall really the late Presidents Arafat and Prime Minister Rabin. What happened to them a year later and 2 years later, when we signed the agreement here on the interim agreement in Washington in September of 1995, the tone of Rabin and Arafat has significantly improved. I mean, they were really, I mean, I've heard Rabin for the first time talk about an independent Palestinian state as the only solution that will bring peace, something he never said before. But then Rabin was assassinated, and later on Arafat was assassinated. And before that, Jim Baker and his team went out of business. And things changed really in both our camp and the Israeli camp towards difficulties.
I just want to catch on one thing. You said Arafat assassinated. Describe that, because I think that that's an issue that is not seen here in that way. What is the feeling about that?
Look, I was in the team of 4 people, which included Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Ala, and Mr. Rawhi Fattouh, that went to meet with the medical commission of the French military and the hospital that the military hospital that treated President Arafat. And we spent a whole day there. It was just 24 hours, well, maybe 48 hours before he clinically, when he really died. He was almost clinically dead by the time. And their diagnosis was no diagnosis. I mean, we don't know exactly really the cause of his death, but we know that there must have been a substance that had killed him that is not part of our toxicological table, that all the materials in our toxicological tables tested negative, but that does not rule other material that we don't have access to.
Let me go back to the conversation about where we are today. It's clear that violence didn't work. In fact, it sabotaged some of the progress in the 90s. It's also clear that negotiations have proven to be a dead end. They just went on, and as has now become cliche, there was more emphasis on process and less on outcome. What's the strategy now? Describe the strategy. Is there one? And what is to be done?
Of course. We have been through 3 strategies since we started our contemporary struggle in 1965. The first strategy, which lasted for some 20-odd years, was armed struggle. It was the only way that would liberate Palestine and would give us a chance to have an independent Palestinian state on a country free of occupation. And then it looked really impossible to achieve, as we started from outside, going into Palestine and then going back to Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. These countries were bombed by Israel and so could not afford to have our bases anymore. It became very difficult. And we decided to go the negotiated way, particularly after the war of 1973, when it looked that the world has changed, the area has changed, and there is a chance that we will be able to succeed in the negotiating arena. It took us until 1988, which is 15 years, to finally come close to getting the Israelis and the Americans to accept to go back with us or to go forward with us on negotiations. When we signed the Madrid conference, we attended the Madrid conference, and then when we signed the Oslo Agreement, it looked like the negotiating settlement was producing results. Well, I think by 2010 we had given up, particularly because of the last negotiations that took place in last September 2010, where President Mahmoud Abbas and Mr. Netanyahu spent 19 hours in direct talks between them, only attended fully by Mrs. Clinton. And during these 19 hours, I think Abu Mazen just gave up. I mean, the man in 19 hours of negotiations would not even start talking about the 6 core issues that, you know, land security, water, refugees, Jerusalem, etc. And he would insisted that not until we accept his 2 preconditions, which are deadly. One of them, accept Israel as an exclusive state for the Jews, which meant truly jeopardizing the lives and future of 1.5 million Palestinian Israelis, Christians and Muslims who are Israeli citizens, and ending any chance of even negotiating the right of, well, not the right of return, but the resolution of the whole refugee issue. Mm-hmm. And the second requirement was the defense doctrine of Israel, which really was code word for keeping military occupation of the River Jordan Valley, which is 28.5% of the West Bank, and 10 kilometers deep inside the West Bank, west borders with Israel, and the whole area of Jerusalem, which meant that really, at best, we won't get 50% of the area. And that is other than the settlement clusters or whatever that they're talking about. It's ridiculous. I mean,
so what is the strategy now?
The strategy now is really the following. It's built on the assumption that neither had military confrontation succeeded, nor negotiations without serious role of the United States. Meaningful, genuine negotiations like the letters of Mr. Baker 20 years ago promised us. And we don't want to go back to a violent confrontation. So we decided to go on the following strategy. It's built on 4 pillars. One is accelerated local nonviolent struggle, Indian style, Martin Luther King style, South African style. 2, again, escalated international activism. I would say South African style, and you know what that means. Number 3, continuing to build the institution of the state as if it's happening tomorrow. And number 4, which could be really number 1, working very hard to achieve national unity. So achieving national unity and building the institutions of the state are the local non-struggle component. The struggle components are both local and international. What we have done in the United Nations is part of the international activist struggle. That is designed really to bring strategically more recognition of the independent Palestinian state, more legitimization of our borders.
Did you expect the hysteria that you'd get, you certainly from Israel, but did you expect the hysteria you'd get from the United States? The fact not only did they vote against, but that they worked feverishly to block it and have resulted in isolating themselves to an enormous extent in the world community. It's got to be a difficulty that you imagined would occur, right?
Well, no. We always saw the growing amount of international support for our cause and for our recognition. And to tell you the truth, honestly, what made the difference was South America. I mean, most of the recognitions have come even since 1988. We had some 94 recognitions from 1998. Some of them were reactivated as we went along, particularly those in Eastern Europe, or what's called now Central Europe. These were all regenerated in the period between 1998 and 2003. But they were originally 1988 recognitions. Most of the new recognitions have come from Latin America. In South America, 11 recognitions came almost in one day. Mm-hmm. And that is the day of the...
But did you expect the U.S. to behave as harshly as they did?
No, I mean, I don't understand it, to be very honest with you.
And were there any surprises in the vote? Did France surprise you? Did Spain surprise you, voting for you?
No, yes.
UK abstaining? Was that big, or was that, did you expect
These are all big, but I mean, the two major surprises, one positive, France voting with us, yeah. One negative, Sweden voting against us. Yeah. I mean, I never expected Sweden to vote against us. Never. Not in my nightmares. And I still don't understand what happened.
Did the number surprise you? Did you want it to be higher?
No, it could be higher because 22 countries never attended the meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay. You need 130 in the General Assembly.
We don't need 130. 130 is the mathematical two-thirds.
Okay.
But votes are calculated from those present and voting.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Now, the issue I want to get to, because we're going to run out of time, is the issue of the dismantling of the PA that's being talked about. Is that serious? And if so, what does it portend for Palestinians who are under occupation if the PA disbands? Is it meaningless, or is it of consequence?
Look, if the United States keeps working, and its Congress keeps working at cutting all our funds, and if the Israelis carry out their threat to cut all our taxes that we receive from them, they will run the Palestinian Authority dead. I mean, where do you get money to run the Palestinian Authority? Where do you get money to pay for your security people? Where do you pay money to do anything? I mean, what is being done by Israel, and I hope not, but what looks like possibly being done in the U.S. Congress, is to really end our ability to maintain the security we've been really working very hard at and achieving in the last 7 years. So when some Palestinians are saying, well, look, we are an authority without real authority, we cannot really accept that for much longer, that this has to change. It means that the Israelis and Americans have to cooperate in changing that. If they don't, it will make it a de facto situation.
If you want to get in the conversation, give us a call. Call us from overseas. It's 001-202-420-5665. If you're calling from here in the U.S., it's 1-202-420-5730. The issue of reconciliation with Hamas, that fourth, you say fourth or first pillar of this strategy, I would agree that it's critical. You clearly will face huge pressure from the United States, which does not want to see this occur, and the Israelis as well. It's a national obligation to have national unity. Has the conditions in the region made it easier or more difficult to get there?
Easier, no doubt. Easier, for a variety of reasons I don't want to go into totally, but I mean, look, what's happening in Syria erodes the base of Hamas, but what's happening in Egypt also creates uncertainty for both Fatah and Hamas, and what's happening in the whole Arab world encouraged the youth of both Hamas and Fatah to work harder for the public pressure to achieve unity. And I see the whole thing. I know the Arab Spring have not settled yet, but whatever is going to happen, it's positive for the pursuit of unity.
Let's go to Florida for a call. Caller? Caller, your
Hello?
question. Yes, hi, your question?
All right, yeah, I have a question. How you doing, James?
I'm fine. How are you?
All right. I like still Mr. Shaath. He's been there for 30 years, him and the whole group. And they haven't done nothing. And they're going to be there another 20 years, and nothing new going to come out. As simple as that.
Okay.
You know.
I'm going to stop you there because I think the point is an interesting one. Ray, you've been there for 30 years, this leadership, and what do you have to show? I mean, how do you respond to that challenge?
Well, there has been changing leadership. 16 of the Central Committee members of Fatah have really died in war or in bed in the last years. Hamas was not really in the leadership, and now there is a leadership in Hamas. And Hamas, its own leadership is changing. And I don't think the problem has been, of course, there's always a quest for new leadership to come in. There's always a quest for younger people to come in. And we're, I think, doing our best to bring them in. But that, I don't think that has been the problem. I mean, the problem lies in the extreme difficulty that you find in resisting an occupation like the Israeli with the full support of a government like the United States. It's
Let me go to
very
Ramallah
difficult.
for a call. Caller? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, yes, your question?
Yeah, my question is I would like to ask our great leader, Mr. Nabil Shaath, regarding the Palestinian people is still really without any future of the peace outcoming process. So we're still waiting for our economic development, and we still, the Palestinian leadership and different both parties or other political parties are still hanging the Palestinian case within their hands. They are not justifying for their people what's going on. The peace process is going around us. We don't know what's going on. Up to what step we will reach. We are, as a Palestinian young people, still looking for having the chance to be actually and eventually understand where we are, what are our next steps to be taken.
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you there because I get the point, and I think it's an important one. A real frustration. Where are we? Where are we going to go? And what do you say to that challenge?
I just answered it in my description of the new strategy. I don't think anybody doubts that we have spilled enough of our martyrs' blood for the cause of Palestine for years. And I'm not talking only about the 25 years of armed struggle, I'm talking about a century of armed struggle. In 1936-39, 30,000 Palestinians gave their lives for their country, which at the time was 3% of the population of Palestine. And then we've given negotiations that much time, almost the same amount of time, 20 years of negotiations. We're trying now something else. We're trying, 1, to reunite, 2, to rebuild, 3, to struggle using all the nonviolent methods that have succeeded in South Africa, India, and the south of the United States, and to go all around the world asking for help. And that's why we are seeking recognitions and international acceptance as members of the United Nations.
Let me take a last call from Tennessee. Caller?
Yes, good afternoon to you guys, Dr. Shaath and
Hi.
Mahmoud Al-Haddad. Dr. Shaath,
Yes.
don't you think that if the United States and Israel continue to refuse to negotiate, there will be a de facto one-state solution?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, a one-state solution was really hoped for in 1969, but that would have been built on liberation of Palestine, and that military armed liberation of Palestine. And that seems now very impossible to do. And therefore, a one-state solution today would be an apartheid state that you do by dissolving the authority and waiting for years until Israel accepts you, hopefully not transferring you out of Palestine, hopefully not building enough settlements to make it impossible for you to live. I don't think that now is really an option. I think the option is continuing the struggle in a variety of ways to achieve an independent Palestinian state on the West Bank and Gaza, and to achieve the right of the Palestinian for return and compensation.
We have more calls holding, but we're not going to get to them. I am so sorry. Up next is Glenn Kessler from the Washington Post talking about fact-checking politicians. Thank you, Nabil, for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you very much.